Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio. Radio. Show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. And you will know. I want to talk to you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio for August the 17th, 2013. I am your host, Larry Love, and tonight we'll bring you the strain report, and we're going to actually go over what happened last week, which was, the Dr. Sanjay Gupta announcement and his special. He earlier in the week, he apologized for being part of the deception for all these years on the use of marijuana for medicine. And then he did that great special, which spurred on a lot of interesting things. After the show last week, ASA, the Americans for Safe Access, had a Google Hangout, and it was quite interesting with some of the people that were on the show. So I've cut up some clips from that I feel were really good, and I'm going to play those in just a few minutes. So before we do that, it's time for the strain report.
You better shop around. Oh yeah, you better shop around. Shop around.
That's right. You better shop around for your strains. There's 23 producers here in New Mexico, and not all of them have medicine these days, but some of them do. And here are the strains that are available. Maybe you'll find one that's good for you. Coming up this week at Canaceutics, Super Lemon Haze, CBD Critical Mass, Zero Gravity, Super Silver Haze, Blues, Shit, Bob's OG, and Kosher Kush. Again, Canaceutics in Albuquerque. CG Corrigan, their indicas are OG18 and Whiteberry. Their hybrids are Headband, and they have a sativa dominant called Deadhead. They also have a high CBD strain called A Toda Madre and Canatonic. Again, that's from CG Corrigan. MedZen this week. We'll have Jilly Bean, a favorite of mine, and a lot of people tell me they like it. Helps them sleep. They have something called ESD, which is Urkel's Star Dog. Oh, that sounds interesting. Obviously, Purple Urkel and across a Star Dog. Willie Frost, the Perps, White Russian, Lemon Kush, and Super Lemon Haze. Let's see. New Mexican. They are open Saturdays now, 10:30 to 3 p.m. They will have Super Silver Haze, which is part of the Super Lemon Haze family. CBD Shark Shock, which is an indica 80%. They have Popcorn Bud from Medicine Woman, an eighth is $32. And they have Loose Keef Hash Topper, made from OG Kush, CBD Canatonic, Tangerine Dream, UBC Chemo, and 1 gram of those would be $35 each. Black Temple Hash, made from Blue Dream, is $35 a gram. And they have a new smokable light oil made from Trainwreck, a half a gram of smokable oil, and a propylene glycol solution, a half a gram, $35. Their BHO wax is from Super Silver Haze, half a gram, $35. And that's New Mexican here in Santa Fe. Also in Santa Fe, New Mexico Top Organics will have this week Crunchberry, Jack Star, Pequeño, and Blue Dream. They're concentrates, and they have a lot of nice waxes and concentrates. Banana Kush, Crunchberry, Blue Dream, RX, Jack Star, White Widow, White Fire, an Indica Blend, and Oracle. So that is the strain report. So a couple of newsworthy mentions right now. The medical cannabis program in the DOH, I got confirmed, I'd heard this, that Dr. Stephen Rosenberg, who is one of the people down in Albuquerque that has a practice that concentrates specifically and only on medical cannabis certifications. He has just been named as the new medical director of the medical cannabis program. So he is going to be the doctor that goes over everybody's applications to make sure everything is in order, and he approves, or he will be the person to approve or deny them. Dr. Rosenberg seems to be a very nice man. I've met him several times. However, I don't know, this just doesn't feel good to me. He being in the cannabis business of certifying patients, and then him being the same person up at DOH, to go over applications and to approve them. It feels like a possible conflict of interest, and we will have to see. I know that he, in the past, has been a witness against some physicians who the New Mexico Medical Board has been trying to, and may be successful in, taking away licenses for a couple of people that are in the same business as he is, certifying patients. So, by the way, the New Mexico Medical Board is the same group of doctors that were trying to change the rules, and was going to have a meeting yesterday on Friday, and they postponed it indefinitely, as far as I know. And I understand that the rules that they were proposing are going to be modified. So, anyway, back to Dr. Rosenberg. More news on this as soon as I get it. I don't know how this is going to affect the program. It either could be good or bad, obviously, but the gut feeling I have that it doesn't seem like a good idea. So any other news I might have for you? Let's see. There's an interesting article. This is from the Weed blog. And many people out there, especially women, have fibromyalgia, and it's a painful disease. There's not much you can do for it, but they're finding that marijuana is being very helpful. So the Journal of Arthritis Care and Research have listed, and then some other people have kicked in, the top 7 marijuana strains for treating fibromyalgia. Okay, and I'm going to read these to you. Let's see if I can get to those. Okay. Blackjack, which is a cross of Jack Horror and Black Domina, is an excellent sativa dominant strain, great for depression and nausea, and they say it's great for fibromyalgia. Also, Chem 4. It's a Chemdog phenotype. It's an indica dominant strain, great for severe pain. And they say that's good for fibromyalgia, as well as Silver Pearl, which is a Northern Lights skunk early pearl cross. Grape Ape, which I've seen around. That's a pure indica strain and smells like grape and tastes like a hint of skunk. And they say that's good for fibromyalgia, as well as AK Berry, which is AK-47 and a blueberry cross. Wow, that sounds good. Also Blue Dream, a very prominent sativa strain, and something called Permafrost. And that's a train wreck and White Widow cross, and it's a hybrid. So, and the source on that is marijuana.com. You might want to go check that out. So once again, it's Blackjack, Chemo 4, Silver Pearl, Grape Ape, AK Berry, Blue Dream, and Permafrost. They say are the top 7 strains for fibromyalgia. All right. Now here's what I want to get to. Last week, after the Sanjay Gupta special, Americans for Safe Access had a 1-hour hangout, Google Hangout, where they had Dr. Shackelford, they had Dr. Sunil Kumar, and I'm not sure how do you pronounce his last name, but he's an incredible young man who is doing tons of research and has a website of his own dispelling myths and so forth. They also had Josh Stanley, who was prominently shown as the compassionate gentleman who's making Charlotte's Web, the CBD strain that is doing so much for people and young kids with epilepsy. And of course, Steph Shear was the host from Americans with Safe Access. And I'm trying to think who else was on. But here's what I want to do. I'm going to play a few little clips. Some of them are 1 or 2 minutes long, and then there might be 1 or 2 that are over 5 minutes. But these are clips that I felt were very important and interesting to listen to. So first up is Josh Stanley, and here we go. Again, this is the ASA after show.
Okay. I was very pleased, and I thought that really out of all of the documentaries that I've seen on medical marijuana, or marijuana really in general in the past, out of all of them, I think that this was probably the most responsible and well done one. I do share the sentiment of we could have taken a little bit less of the bong smoke, but I think, you know, as far as Paige said, it is a bit necessary to kind of draw those two lines together. However, having said that, I think that reports like this are vital, and they're also starting to show the American public on how you can bridge the gap, or actually separate the two, if you will, the medical and the recreational, because we get asked that all of the time. You know, well, Colorado, when can I come there and smoke a joint with you, Josh? Well, you know, it doesn't really work that way. And I think that once you see, you know, a story like this, you start to understand the impact that medicinal cannabis has. And I think that the world is seeing that now. And now that you have a central figure like Sanjay Gupta, you know, one of the top medical doctors in the world, not just the United States, this brings this to the front of the stage. We've been waiting for this for so long. And I know Americans for Safe Access has been waiting for this, and all types of other advocacy groups. This is a huge night for us. And this documentary has really pushed us over into the conservative soccer mom realm, where you're going to start to see those kinds of people take notice.
Okay, that was Josh Stanley, and they were just sort of going around the table talking about what they felt about the special that Sanjay had done last week. Next up is Sunil Kumar, the researcher, and he's amazing. I played some stuff of his before on the show. So here's Sunil.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a change in the medical journalism for the American establishment to have this piece. So this is a milestone, and especially the focus on pediatric cannabis use, which people really haven't seen much of in, you know, even though pediatric cannabis use for medical purposes has gone on for so long, but people really didn't see it or appreciate it until now in the mainstream media. I mean, there was a few cases of autism here or there, but this was a really thoroughly documented seizure disorder with Charlotte. So I think that's going to be huge, and I think it's also super huge to have a neurosurgeon who's on faculty at Emory and you know, respected by the public, talking about the fact that cannabis can protect the brain from damage. I mean, there's no other qualified person in the world except really a neurosurgeon to talk about what, you know, brain damage and brain protection. So I think that's a huge moment. And then it was really great for the public to see the Israeli medical use of cannabis in hospitals and nursing homes. The fact that they actually have a center in the Bathsheba hospital there was huge. And I've heard about the doctors who run that facility. They've set it up for pediatric use and oncology wards, inpatient cannabis use. And I'm hoping that we'll get to a day like that here in the U.S. I have a piece on Alternet in the last couple of days about pot myths, pot propagandists, anti-pot myths, and I did see a number of those about the halfway mark, and I would, like this Dr. Gruber from Harvard talking about white matter damage. I mean, it's like they had 15 subjects in that study, and they'd been using cannabis for a very long time, and they were all using it illegally. They were from ages 16 to 33, and they're just, we don't know what the impact of using cannabis illegally is on the brain. And I feel like we ought to take that with a grain of salt. The same thing with the addiction numbers. They're very much conflated with people getting legal problems in them. I kind of go through all these myths in my piece today on Alternet. So like those things, the potency myth. I mean, cannabis has been potent for a long time, and if oral preparations are potent, and they've been like that for eons, and people can regulate. And I think the reason why it's important to highlight these sort of harm misconceptions is because it's going to determine how carefully people want to control cannabis, because we know it has benefits, and so what are the risks? And that's where I think Dr. Gupta's documentary could have been a little bit more in depth in looking at like how those studies came about.
Okay, and then Sunil talked a little bit about geography and the fact that patients, sick people, where they are in states that don't have a medical marijuana program, are moving to other states. So first, I'm going to play Sunil's comment on that, and then I'll play Josh's comment as well. So here's Sunil.
Sunil, let me just say, as a medical geographer, I went to school studying geographic patterns of health and disease. This is a huge medical migration that's happening in this country. I'm hearing about it from here in various places. People going to Colorado, coming to Michigan, crossing borders. This, if anything, if anybody's not convinced, the fact that somebody would uproot their lives and go thousands of miles somewhere else to use a treatment is, should be a huge reason, evidence enough to people how significant this is for people's lives. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a geographer.
If someone was to just show up in Colorado or New Jersey or one of these states, would they be able to find the same kind of support that Charlotte's finding?
That's a very good question, and whoever's asking it is right on point here. We get that question a lot. There's really two sides to that. It's very difficult at this point in time, and there's 20 medical marijuana states, and really, with the exception of some work that some great people are doing in Michigan, where there are some high CBD strains available there. Of course, in Colorado, with our organization that's called the Realm of Caring Foundation, that was really founded after we'd seen the positive benefits with Charlotte and now all of the other 40 kids that we're treating, and we'll be treating in the winter 200. So we have a lot of access to the high CBD strains here in Colorado, and we're here to help any family, any child, and any adult that can come in here. We have a waiting list right now, but we've beefed up our production. So the answer to that question, in Colorado, there's going to be enough here come the fall and winter based on our harvest and what we're doing. Then you have California, and California is an anomaly because you have the amount of people in Los Angeles County as you do in all of Colorado, and we still don't see those high CBD strains in California, because really you have to look at the model and the lifestyle out there has largely been, I realize it's medical, but that's a wink nod nod in some situations. I know there's a lot of people use high THC strains for medicines, as we sell those as well, but the CBD revolution is just getting to California, and the Realm of Caring Foundation, we are expanding into that market into California, because there are literally, as we're finding out, thousands of children who have similar afflictions to that of Charlotte that we're going to get out there to help. So, having said that, really, Colorado and Michigan and California are really your best bets. But if people have want further information on that, they can go to realmofcaring.com and get in contact with us, and we have all kinds of staff and volunteers, and we wish to be a resource for these people that want to learn more, especially like Paige said, we're 12 phone calls an hour. Literally hundreds of phone calls a day rolling in, after you see this wonderful story with this wonderful little girl, and we anticipate thousands more. And so we want to be that resource. There's always so many questions. And then, to the question of, can I come out to Colorado? Can I come to California, to one of these 20 medical marijuana states, and just get plugged in and connected, immediately? The answer to that is, unfortunately, no. There are hoops that you have to jump through, and it's different in every state. In Colorado, our medical marijuana is regulated by a division of the Colorado Department of Revenue. It's called the Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division. And you have a series of hoops that you have to jump through in order to be able to get this type of treatment. As Paige said in the documentary, they didn't have to go to one doctor, but had to go to see two doctors. And we really didn't. We try not to send young children to just someone who does nothing but medical marijuana, and that's why we work with Dr. Alan Shackelford, and we do our best if we can in any instance to deal with that child's primary neurologist as well. So realmofcaring.com, and we'd love to answer any other questions. There's all kinds of different specifics with families, but we're here to help you in any way that we can.
Okay, that's Josh Stanley again, realmofcaring.com. You can get in touch with him if you know anybody that has a child with epilepsy or Gervais and all that terrible stuff that afflicts so many people. Next up, speaking of Dr. Shackelford, here's Dr. Shackelford, who's an amazing doctor who works with Josh up there and worked on the Charlotte's case. Talking about studies, okay, we're going to listen to Dr. Shackelford and then back to Sunil Kumar talking about studies on cannabis.
Well, it is in fact the case that most of the studies, most of the reporting tends to be in the medical journals that doctors read as part of their ongoing medical education, and most of that doesn't really deal with cannabis as a medical treatment option. And one of the reasons for that, well, there are a couple of reasons, one of which is that out of in the neighborhood of 150,000 clinical trials currently underway worldwide, according to clinicaltrials.gov, which is a website that tracks clinical study of everything, from new cold remedies to asthma treatments to cancer treatments. And this is run by the FDA and the National Institutes of Health. There are 347 out of 150,000 are on marijuana. So there aren't many studies being done, and so there's not a great deal of information to report on. Having said that, some 20,000 trials have been done since about 1960. That's not a huge number, but it is something. And thanks to authors like Sunil and Greg Carter and others at University of Washington who have published some extraordinary reviews of the medical cannabis literature, it is more readily, this type of information is more readily available to physicians, but you still have to dig for it. And much of what Dr. Gupta reported on, and much of the information that he cited as being responsible for his change of mind in all of his investigation here, is a result of all of us who have been engaged in this arena having dug so deeply and then summarized it to him in our conversations with him. Of course, thereupon he did his own research and went to the source material directly, which is what a responsible scientist would do in any event. And so he arrived at his decisions independently, of course, but we were able to provide him with some direction for his investigations. And I think that unfortunately, physicians typically don't have access to a lot of the information because there isn't a lot of information available. Hopefully that will change in future. But right now it really is a digging exercise, and you really have to be interested enough in the topic to actually kind of wade through a lot of material.
Okay, more on studies now by Sunil Kumar.
By the way, I do agree that this is an absolutely fundamental and remarkable moment in time that has been a long time coming, and hopefully will be just the beginning of an expanded discussion in the national media, such as CNN on this topic, and many other related reports.
So thanks very much, Alan. I appreciate that you've had a chance to look at some of our articles. We've created some online medical education resources for physicians, continuing medical education accredited, sources, and I'll give two websites that patients can give to their doctors, or if there's any physicians on or healthcare providers on, they can check out. One is called theanswerpage.com, theanswerpage.com. It's based out of Massachusetts, and it's been featured on the Massachusetts Medical Society website, which is the oldest medical society in the United States. There's lots of really good reviews there for doctors to learn about the use of cannabis medicines, dosing, pharmacology, science, politics. I've been fortunate to be able to write some of that material. So that's one place to go. Another one is medicalcannabis.com, which is an organization run by an organization called Patients Out of Time. And they have they've done conferences throughout the country to educate physicians with leading researchers from around the world, including Israel. Dr. Raphael Meshulam and other physicians from Israel and Brazil have come to these conferences, and they've recorded them on videos. And all of those are available for physicians to watch and get credit through the UCSF medical school. So medicalcannabis.com and theanswerpage.com. My own website, MMjRadio.com, which you can see at the bottom of the screen here. I've got some of those articles that Dr. Shackelford mentioned, free for anyone to download these reviews, because I think it's very important for physicians to be able to have their access to this information. Even for Dr. Gupta, who's world-renowned and has all the medical, journalism people at his fingertips, they weren't able to quite read the literature until now, even though prior years they've sort of said the data wasn't there. Even though we know there are some huge number of controlled clinical trials. I think there was 110 controlled trials from 1975 till 2010 that were published in an article that involved 6,100 patients. It's a small number compared to other things, of course, and that's because of these ridiculous prohibitions that have made, basically, held up the medical development in a very important area. So, but we do have enough information to say that cannabis, marijuana does have medically accepted uses in the United States, and that's what Dr. Gupta says in his op-ed. That we know that there are pharmaceutical companies that have made extracts of cannabis that have been able to give those to hundreds of patients in double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. And thankfully, they've published that data in the journals for everybody in the medical and scientific community to see. So if you ask the question, if somebody says to you, hey, is there really any clinical trials, like high-quality, multi-center, hundreds of patients trials that give marijuana or a placebo and find out if it really works? The answer is yes. And it does work, especially if you're looking at pain from cancer or multiple sclerosis related spasticity or other symptoms like mobility problems. That's really fascinating because, MS is a progressive neurological disease, and people are getting improved mobility. So I think doctors, anyone listening, people need to know that, understand that this country, we do have that level of trials available. And one doctor I've heard here in New York is going to be doing a clinical trial with a cannabis extraction that's made by one of these private pharmaceutical companies. He's going to give to Lennox-Gastaut patients, another form of intractable epilepsy, and Dravet syndrome patients, and other types of pediatric epilepsies in a controlled clinical trial. So it's not to say these things should go on, but it doesn't mean that we don't have enough information to start using this in patients, in programs that we have. It's safe enough. Now, the more information we get, the better we can get it. But that doesn't mean that people who are suffering right now shouldn't have access to this. And again, doctors need to get educated on this. As Alan says, it's not there in the textbooks, but that's going to change because this endocannabinoid system is very important. And one thing I want to mention, Dr. Gupta said that, how high use of cannabis, you can shut down your own endocannabinoid system. In moderate uses, we've seen that you can boost your own endocannabinoid system. And that's why possibly we're seeing the benefits in Charlotte. That if people are confused, why is her brain improving, but that other doctor from Harvard says that white matter gets messed up, and And the answer is that, first of all, that she's using a confounded data set of people under stress, and secondly, that they're not really looking at these neuroprotective properties. So, and that the cannabinoid system is what does plays a key part in that. So.
Okay, that's again Sunil Kumar, and we'll take a short little break, play a piece of music, and then we'll be right back.
Life in me, touch my mind, see what is in me. Feel life in you. Touch your mind, we come almost as one, in one, as one. Life lives on a common ground of love. survive. Sometimes it's hard to see. Look nowhere, be conscious of what you cannot see. In me, it's there to see. It's there to see.
Hi, this is Steve D'Angelo, and you are listening to Medical Marijuana Radio.
Thank you, Steve. And okay, so let's get back to some of these clips from the Google Hangout from the Americans for Safe Access. Next up, Steph Shear asked the panel about how they felt about the fact that Obama was still raiding medical marijuana dispensaries in legal marijuana states.
Across the panel and ask sort of the question. I know I have my opinions, but I'd like to hear from everyone why you think Obama has broken his promises and is continuing to raid medical cannabis dispensaries. And I'm gonna take that back to Paige and Matt. What do you think is happening there at the federal level?
You know, we've been kind of politically quiet about this. We're parents treating our child, but I think it's political suicide for these people to get involved. That's all I can think. Seeing what I've seen and seeing all these children with the same success, I think there must be a reason. It must be, political suicide to get involved. That's all I can think that it is.
Yeah, I would agree with Paige. The days of liability that we live in, who's willing to stick their neck out for anyone else? It's a seldom person. So I'm so thankful for a network like CNN to stick their necks out, and Sanjay taking care of us and giving us this opportunity to let everyone see the other side of what's happening here. So I'm just glad everyone's eyes are finally opening.
Sorry.
I guess Josh, do you want to say something about that, since you're the one potentially taking the most risk on this video with your cannabis dispensing for medical use?
Yeah, it's a question that comes up a lot, and first off, let me just kind of make it clear right now that we face this threat every day of federal prosecution and incarceration for what we do with helping these children, for what we do dispensing medical marijuana. And for one, I know that I do not look good in orange, and I don't want to call the top bunk for anybody. And this is, it sounds funny, but this is what's on our minds a lot. And so we do a lot of picking and trying to get to the bottom of the reasons why President Obama has basically done a 180 and said, do what I say, but don't do what I do. And I think that we get a lot of information, and I'm not going to use his name, but we use a federal lobbyist, Dr. Shackelford, of course, you know who I'm referring to. And this is a person who's in the Oval Office typically once a month, and has worked with a lot of different administrations. And I'll give you his take on it, because I think it's the one that makes the most sense to me. And that is that, and I've heard this from other people as well in Capitol Hill in Washington, that President Obama is so disconnected from his cabinets. There's a lot of rogue departments that are running out there, things that he really doesn't maintain much control over. I've heard that from two high-ranking government officials and lobbyists now, where they basically share the view that he has people that are running wild, and where they're running wild is they're they're controlled by, let's face it, folks, nobody likes to talk about it, but they're controlled by political action committees and special interest groups. And whether that's pharmaceutical companies, whether that's insurance companies, whether that still has ties to the DuPont family and industrial natures, or biofuels, or whatever the case of the conspiracy may be.
Josh, let me just chime in here and say that I wrote a letter to Obama to help a gentleman who was getting a felony for cannabis distribution for medical purposes in Tennessee. And I did some research and I found out that Obama's own father, the father of Barack Obama from Africa, was brought over here by a foundation called the Samuel Rubin Foundation. They're the ones who funded him to come to Hawaii. That's where he met his mother. And the founder of that institution is named Cora Weiss, and her mother was Cora Weiss Rubin. Her maiden name was Rubin, and her mother, Vera Rubin, wrote a book called Cannabis and Culture in the 60s and early 70s. She was a Columbia University anthropologist, one of the leaders in studying cannabis use in Jamaica, cannabis use around the world, and studied its normal, traditional, natural use around the world, including medical uses. So the mother of the woman whose organization brought Obama's father to the U.S. Was a cannabis researcher and recognized its medical uses. And so I wrote that to Obama. And then I also mentioned that his mother, Obama's mother, who was also an anthropologist, she died from horrible uterine cancer very early, and Obama has talked about that very, pointedly when he talks about healthcare reform, that how tough it was for his mother to get care around the time of her death or illness because of the insurance or something to do with the cost of treatments. There are cannabinoids.
What do you think about the raids?
Well, I'm just saying that, if he's authorizing these things at some level, he's the one that's responsible for this. He should know that his own mother could potentially have been, that illness could have been, there's research that suggests that cannabinoids could stop the cancer in the animal studies that his mother died from. And I'm trying to, this has to be at some personal decision level. I know there's all these special interests and everything, but we know that there are human beings living and dying. Washington, D.C. now has a medical cannabis program, and the mothers and grandmothers of legislators and their pages and their staffers are going to be, seeing the benefits of having access to cannabis in the capital of this country. And so really it's going to be, I think, there's something very human about this. These raids are probably, just this knee-jerk stuff. The law is still there. Humans are very used to just taking advantage of things as long as the system allows it. And it's going to take brave people like Dr. Gupta and people inside the system that really just sort of say, hey, we're kind of done with this. We're done with segregation of cannabis and other medicines. It's just like it just takes time, and eventually, and unfortunately, we're going to have to kind of. I'm hoping that we're going to hear some news in the coming days from the administration that gives us some stops this madness, because it's not right.
Okay, and now Dr. Shackelford comments about the raids.
Well, in addition, there is a great deal of money going into law enforcement agencies around the country, which supports the salaries of many different police officers and acquisition of equipment and just a whole variety of different types of activities that really primarily goes to arrest and prosecution of marijuana crime, quote unquote. And I think that plays a huge role. The other thing that plays a large role in this country, which really doesn't get spoken about a great deal, is how we finance our elections. And as the term special interest really means that when you make a donation to a political campaign, you expect at least to have your particular perspective or interest heard or addressed. And of course, big donors will donate to both parties, but there really is a propensity to buy influence indirectly by making campaign contributions. And it's difficult to ferret through all of that. That may be playing a role, and in discussions that around the production of this particular special report tonight, that came up. It was a question that was raised as to who stands to benefit from the prohibition of cannabis and the obstacles that are placed in the way of its medical use. And it's not difficult to find that certainly, let's assume for a second that in fact concentrated cannabis extracts could treat a variety of different cancers. And as Sunil correctly said, there is evidence in animals that that's the case, and also in cell culture. And let's just say that some of the things we've observed in our clinical practice were true, that PSA levels in men with metastatic prostate cancer that is now androgen independent, or androgen receptor, where androgen receptor blockers no longer work, are in fact seeing a reduction in the tumor load by using cannabis extracts. Somebody stands to lose a great deal, because treatment of these different diseases is quite costly and quite profitable. So, the trail is complex, and I don't mean to imply that President Obama has been bought and sold, but I really, if you interpret some of those memos as well quite strictly, one of them said that nobody will be bothered as long as you're in strict compliance with state law, and California in particular doesn't really have a state law that one can be strictly compliant with, unlike Colorado, thanks to the efforts of Josh and many other people in formulating the regulation of the Colorado medical marijuana industry. We do have strict and very clear laws that one can be compliant with. So it may be simply a function of strict interpretation of exactly what the Justice Department memos say.
Okay, and that was Dr. Shackelford. And next is Sunil, again commenting about Obama and the state-federal law conflict.
That Charlotte cannot leave Colorado because of President Obama. Charlotte, this girl, young girl, I told this to Dr. Gupta at the pre-screening, that she right now isn't legally able to go visit Yellowstone, just right across the border, or to go check out Disneyland in California, because she's a five-year-old girl who's really like exploring and discovering the world for the first time. Why can't she? Because the state-federal conflict, because the government doesn't recognize the medical use, because they're choosing not to look at these studies, and that means that crossing state borders with a contraband Schedule 1 is a federal felony, and Obama and his chief enforcer are going to go after this little girl. I mean, how unbelievably wrong is that? That's not right. And we have these pockets of sanity in some states, but this is the outrage of this is what people have to really to get through to their legislators.
Okay. In that vein, I was watching some of the stuff on This Week on CNN, and they were talking about how the federal government has been supplying 500 marijuana cigarettes in a big tin for like 30 or 40 years, grown at the Old Miss down in Mississippi, and providing it for, there was, I guess, 23 patients originally, and I think they're down to 4. Irv Rosenfeld is someone who speaks out, and he's one of the users that is provided medical cannabis by the federal government, and he's allowed to fly around with his marijuana through any state, cross lines and so forth. So that's what Sunil was talking about, how Charlotte, who is actually feeling better and having some kind of a quality of life, is stuck in Colorado and can't go be a young child and visit Disneyland or other places. So something has got to change, and it's all about politics, of course. And here's a couple of clips about the politics, and first up is Steph Shear from ASA.
The idea of big lobbyists or people really working against us, I really am finding that individuals aren't talking to their members of Congress. And so the reason that Obama came out in favor of medical cannabis was that individual patients showed up everywhere he went on his campaign trail. and asked him about medical cannabis. That didn't just happen. It was because individuals worked at their state level to pass these laws. And after Obama was elected, and he made a positive statement through the Department of Justice, that support didn't continue. And so we're actually right now, everyone's federal legislators are home for August recess. That means your 2 senators and your member of Congress are in your district somewhere, probably raising money, but they're also meeting with constituents. And if you're moved by this piece, if you want to make sure that medical cannabis is an option for Charlotte or for yourself, then you have to meet with those federal representatives. Yes, there are lobbyists out there that may have different interests, but if we're not at least mentioning this to our elected officials, no one else is going to. So I just want to invite everyone who is watching to participate in the Peace for Patients campaign. You can go to peaceforpatients.org and get information about your federal representatives. We even make it easy for you. We've got letters you can download, but they're in town. And so if you stop by their office and say, I saw this documentary on CNN, and I want you to apologize too, just like Sanjay Gupta.
And that's again Steph Shear. And now here's Josh Stanley on politics and cannabis.
Yes.
Well, and it's criminal. We talk about, oh, this is wrong, and that, this is wrong, this is okay. When we're talking about something that works so well for these children, and now Charlotte has the ability to go discover and see the world, and she's still kept in a cage here in Colorado. We have to demand more than that as Americans, as citizens, and a couple of things here. Whenever your health is traded as a commodity on the public stock exchange, when your freedom is traded as a commodity on the public stock exchange, we have gone way too far. And instead of going out and activating and saying, oh, I'm going to go fight this or fight that, there's nothing to fight. There's leading by example. And that's what you're seeing Americans do now. You're seeing this level of education, this level of civil disobedience, where they say enough is enough. We've gone way too far down this slippery slope. And so, that's the other theory with the federal government is it's not about marijuana inherently in Obama's cabinet. It's about control. Marijuana is just a symptom, okay, of a loss of control. It's the American public saying, no more are you going to tell me what I can put in my body or in my children's body, especially a benign substance like medical marijuana. And so, we could talk around it in all these different ways. It's been the same thing. Obama, maybe a little bit worse than old GW, okay? But we see the same thing happen every 4 to 8 years. A different puppet dances across that stage, but the marionette stays the same. And it's time that Americans start waking up. People look at us and say, hey, aren't you sick and tired, of poking the federal government? And I said, we're not poking the federal government. Our aim here is to poke the American public. We're waking people up, and you're seeing people wake up for the first time. You're seeing real change happen. You're seeing numbers go from the year 2000 for a total of the same Gallup poll, 36% people in favor of legalization. Now you're at 52% in that same poll. Things are happening, and it's exciting, and it's because of the American people. And Steph, you're right in that regard. Get out. Become a part of the solution and not the problem. Start talking to your senators. Start talking to your representatives. The ball's rolling. There's no way you're going to put this water back in the dam.
Okay, and now more on the Gupta-Obama connection.
However, Dr. Gupta has said that he's going to do all he can to repair some of the damage that he's done by telling people for all these years, even though we had studies back then when he was saying that he would vote against pot, that he's ready to do some work to kind of, get us the answers that we need. I mean, there's so many wonderful leads. So I think we're going to see him be involved more. I should mention there's one human study that showed that THC injected into the brains of people with glioblastoma multiforme, which is a horrible brain tumor that Edward Kennedy died of, in a Spanish study in human beings. You could inject THC into those tumors, not CBD, but THC, and you saw a shrinkage of those tumors. And it was a small series, but somebody has got to follow up on that.
Well, I think
yeah, I was just going to say, Dr. Gupta should know it's so difficult to operate on glioblastoma brain cases. The tumors everywhere. I'm sure, as a neurosurgeon, he can understand that this could be huge.
Well, no question. And I also think
So-
that, forgive me, as he was President Obama was interested in him being Surgeon General of the United States in the first administration. I doubt very much that that connection has really been particularly broken in the past 4 years, and I suspect that the president watched this tonight, and I think that's very, very important.
You bet he did. He asked Sanjay, I was talking with Sanjay about it, and he asked him to be the Attorney General of the United States when Sanjay was 38 years old. He would have been 16, Surgeon General, sorry, he would have been 16 years the youngest Surgeon General. So, back to the original question, what's Obama doing? Obama knows what's going on. He sat down and he watched this with a bowl of popcorn. Is he going to do anything about it? Well, that remains to be seen.
Okay, and I'll tell you, Josh is right on in a lot of everything that I've heard him say. I just think he's an amazing person. And now we're just finishing up. We have a couple more clips to go. This next one is back to Sunil talking about CBD and THC.
This is Sunil. I just want to say that somebody asked a question about what do they think of Dr. Thurston on the program or his work with Project SAM. Those guys put out a press release after the statements of Dr. Gupta saying that, CNN misled the public because she really got treated not with marijuana but with CBD, and they also went on to say that Gupta wasn't calling for medical use, just for more research, which is, both of those statements are absolutely absurd. And Dr. Thurston, as a director of that organization, that absurdity falls on him as well. So, first of all, CBD has been part of cannabis since the very beginning. THC and CBD go together, and while there's been less CBD, doesn't mean it's been completely out. And some of the strains that have been available, they were probably better because of the small amount of CBD that was there. We're just more aware of its potential now, and so it's not like, it's just pure CBD. This is whole plant medicine, and all the other cannabinoids might be interacting together to make it a good medicine. So I wanted to just respond to that Project SAM statement, because it's really not, it's disingenuous and misleading people. CBD is part of marijuana, and moreover, there are some patients that might need THC. THC is not this boogeyman. The FDA allows for THC pills to be given to children in cancer chemotherapy. It's on the label of the drug. So in some children who have epilepsy or other disorders, the tetrahydrocannabinol might be a more effective treatment. So I just wanted to get that clarity out there for anybody that was wondering about the Project SAM people.
Okay, I'm not too sure what Project SAM is, what he was referring to. I'm going to have to Google that. Maybe you should as well. All right, so closing out, Charlotte's mother and father were very brave I mean, obviously they had to try anything they could, but they were just brave to come forward, be a part of such a public documentary and so forth. And so I want to end with Charlotte's dad talking about his experience with this.
I just want to say one thing in closing. Everyone always comments, "Oh, you guys are so courageous, so brave." And if they were in our shoes, it wasn't a courageous choice. It was the only choice. And one thing that got cut out of the documentary tonight was that I very pointedly made known to Sanjay that I wanted to know why this wasn't the first course of action, why it was the last course of action. And I think that was something that I hope he took to heart. I hope it's something he remembers. And thank God he gave us his choice to move forward with this and give it the recognition that it needs. But I oftentimes wonder, how much better would Charlie be doing today if we would have started treatment with CBD even earlier? Because I've seen all the good that it's done. Another thing we don't even talk about too often is all of the positive side effects that CBD has. She eats better. She sleeps better. Her behavior's better. I remember times in some of the other medicines she was on, she'd be literally clutching at my face, like scratching it, and like, this is not even my daughter in this body right now. So, enough said. But I'm so thankful that we found this, and yeah, everyone needs to know that this wasn't a choice for us; it was the only choice, and I'm so glad we found it.
Okay, again, that's Charlotte's dad. The show itself last week that Sanjay Gupta put together, again, like I've said last week and the week before, I had a feeling that something was going to happen, and this was going to be big because it was in such a big forum. And so I think a lot of people got educated last week. And if you'd like to see the whole piece, go to YouTube, type in ASA, or Americans for Safe Access, and they have this whole hour up there on YouTube that you can watch. We'll be right back.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show.
Okay, I just want to say, add one thing. Back in the early 1970s, a friend of mine gave me a book. It was a photocopy of a book written by the great vaudevillian actor, director, comedian W.C. Fields, who I'm a huge fan of. And in his book called Fields for President, and you can find it up on eBay, some reprints of it and reeditions. In his book, on the beginning at one of the chapters, W.C. Fields says, I'm paraphrasing right now, I wish I could find my copy so I could read it to you, but he says that every August the 18th, which is tomorrow, he goes into his backyard, lights up a marijuana cigarette, and goes into his memory basket and thinks about his life and just reviews his life. And when I saw that and read that back there in about 1969 or 70, I said, you know what a great way to commemorate cannabis and marijuana, and of course W.C. Fields I'm a huge fan of. So starting back then in the 70s, and I think probably before the guys from San Rafael, California were meeting at 420, to smoke a joint with each other, I started having a yearly commemoration and appreciation of marijuana. And so every August the 18th, I light up a joint, and I go into my memory basket and I think about my life. So tomorrow's the 18th, and so check it out. Try that. It's a real nice thing to do. You just think about what's going on in your life from the time you were a child to the future. We'll be right back to close out the show.
The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for listening, and don't forget, obviously you can download this or listen to it online on YouTube and on Ustream. I want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. And don't forget to F certain organizations like Wells Fargo and Cannabis.com and Bishop's Lodge, who are not really friendly to the medical cannabis industry. So we'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll have a good guest. Don't forget, call in next week. Only a few weeks left. We're going to be giving away a magicalbutter.com. Go look it up, magicalbutter.com, and we'll give one away to a lucky caller. You have to call in, everybody. So don't forget, we're live Saturday nights, 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 East, 6 Pacific. Good night, everybody. We'll be back next week.
The medical marijuana. Shalom. Shalom.
Good night, everybody. Feel well.